The fact that a pandemic happened near a lab doesn't mean labs can't help prevent pandemic. That's not how that works. This is so stupid. This is like saying, dude, the OSHA office is right here. How did you let somebody fall off a ladder like a block away or a mile away? No, it's even stupider than that. Because you can conceivably prevent a ladder from falling, you can't stop a virus from transmitting interpersonally out of nowhere from patient zero. What does that even mean? Oh, breaking points. Perfect. Perfect.
Good morning, everyone.
This is what I want. This is what we do. This is what we do here. Okay? What's up?
Everybody, happy Monday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Crystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots of interesting things this morning, including some big old news about the lab leak
Big news.
theory, once dismissed and derided as conspiracy, racist, etc., etc. Now we have a U.S. government report suggesting that is the most likely cause of the coronavirus pandemic. Who could have known it,
No one could
Sagar?
have known. Yeah, never.
Absolute shock. All right, so we'll get to all of that. We also have new developments out of Ohio. Researchers saying that the toxins in the air are worse than what the government is saying. We also have a new report that tens of thousands of animals died within this 5-mile radius. Also much
Probably way more than that.
much worse than initial estimates. So we'll break that down for you. We also have some 2024 news. Shots fired at Ron DeSantis over Ukraine, which is increasingly becoming a critical divide in the Republican primary. So that is really interesting. New numbers on inflation. Not good. Not good in terms of inflation. Not good in terms of what the Federal Reserve might do about it. And we also have a very... So anyway, we'll talk to him. He's a tech...
Of COVID-19 pandemic, the Energy Department now says. Now, why should we care what the Energy Department says? Well, what we found out from this piece, and actually some of us who've been tracking this for quite some time, is that the Energy Department is actually legally entrusted with overseeing safety procedures at a myriad of different labs across the United States. So their estimate of intelligence and how they would interpret it with respect to lab leak was actually quite important. And now they claim, apparently with, quote, low confidence, and an updated document that was delivered to the Director of National Intelligence, Avril, I'm blanking on her name right now.
Avril Haines?
Avril Haines, there we go. Avril Haines, that they have estimated that it is now the most likely origin of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is amid some consternation within the intelligence community. So let's put this up there on the screen from what we know right now.
Oh my God, Sagar grew a beard. I was responding to emails. I'm just waiting for them to start making prescriptive statements. Okay, get the intro out of the way.
4 intelligence agencies, remember there are 17, think that COVID spread naturally, lol. The Department of Energy thinks that lab leak was the originator of the COVID-19 pandemic, quote, with low confidence. The most interesting one to me, actually, and they kind of buried the lead here, is that the FBI thinks that the lab leak was the most likely origin with, quote, moderate confidence. Now, the canard that a lot of people are using to try to dismiss this as to why exactly they were wrong in the first place, Crystal, is that, quote, none think it was part of a Chinese bioweapons program. Well, we should remember, like, that was never the original claim, except for one person, Tom Cotton, saying it, I believe, in early of February 2020. But since then, the lab leak theory, hypothesis, has always been that sketchy research was being conducted at the Wuhan lab. This research and its sketchy safety practices were well acknowledged by the U.S. State Department in cables that we have since been open since 2018.
Like what sketchy? Okay, man. I had to learn so much stuff for gain of function research. I hope everyone understands. There are ways to do this well and ways to do this poorly. But gain of function research is like I'm pretty sure it's a really common part of like virological research, you know? You have to understand, a lot of the stuff that our virologists work on is dangerous. I hope everyone can understand there's no non-risk assessed way to do virological research for reasons that I would hope are obvious. Anything that you're doing in that department has to be held to like really rigorous safety standards, and a failure to abide by those safety standards to the point that there's a lab leak, that's a huge deal. And if it really happened, I want to know. But this broader attack on gain of function research comes across as pretty anti-scientific to me. Basically, gain of function research is when you like edit or mutate deliberately a virus with an attempt to kind of like make it more lethal or more transmittable or in any way enhance its negative characteristics, but you're doing so to like get ahead on it. You're doing so to find out how it's going to mutate, to try to understand more about how things are developing. So like a really good example of how you can imagine gain of function research, at least kind of in concept being like reasonable, is antibacterial hand soap. You know that the hand sanitizer and how everything's antibacterial. We give antibiotics to the animals that we force feed in our meat packing plants and da da da. And now like everyone's eating antibacterial stuff all the time, you know. But it's like you kill 99.999% of bacteria. Some will survive, and eventually you're going to start isolating bacteria strains that are resistant to common antibiotics. And the more we take antibiotics, the more we incentivize the growth and spread of the very small subset of strains that are resistant to our antibiotic medicine, which needs stronger medicine to counter. And eventually, like we're basically doing like advanced trial run. Have you ever seen any of those YouTube videos where they're like, I used AI to build a bot that could finish a level, a platformer level. And at first, like the little doodad will just stay there. And then by like 1,000 iterations in, it'll be like doing backflips and shit. We're basically doing that to bacteria. And the idea would be like, don't you think it'd be helpful to kind of know how those more advanced strains would act before they actually, you know, are everywhere and stuff like that. You know, I'm no virologist. I'm just saying it's not a totally bad thing.
It was well known that they were not following proper safety protocols. Then the incredible amount of evidence that we have that November 2019 onwards, clearly something terrible had happened. The original database of the samples was taken off of the Wuhan website. September 2019 has yet to been found as to why. They give no explanation as to why. We know about the the World Games, the World Military Games that were happening there. People can go back and watch 2 years ago now. At this point, all the open source searches that we found a spike for coronavirus symptoms. The fact was also that, the original wet market theory and natural origin. Well, the wet market happens to be a place where people shop who work at the lab. So, the original people who left the lab went out there and, of course, spread it to the population, at least, according to this theory. And then we also know that there were people who, at least one or two, up to three, this was back in 2021 that this report came out, that one of those people was known to have contracted it in November of 2019. So all the open source evidence in the world pointed to the lab leak hypothesis. And this has just been a dragging of the feet by the Biden administration to June of 2020.
Okay, so again, like a lot of this just isn't true. A lot of this is just like cherry picking bits of evidence that you want to believe are true. But like, okay, what are the prescriptions? What I want to know is like, let's say we definitively prove it. What are we saying about it? What are we? Okay, well, okay, this is the same like lab leak, like pseudo conspiracism that we've been listening to for a while. I want to know, where are we going? What are we arriving at following all this?
That this has been happening at all, the reason why is not that they wanted to get to the bottom of it. It's because Republicans in Congress have made a huge stink about how they are going to subpoena all of these documents and do their own internal investigation. And the agencies themselves are getting ready to provide Congress those documents. So their hand was completely forced in even providing this new intelligence estimate. And look, it's not a shocker to anybody who's been following the evidence now for some time. And of course, the real meta takeaway from this is just the evidence been pointing to this basically since day one. It was completely covered up by Dr. Fauci, by the EcoHealth Alliance, of which we'll talk about in a moment. And really, a lot of apparatchiks in the media who were afraid that, talking about this was racist. And of course, the worst part was that people were taken off of social media, including the Zero Hedge Twitter account. I believe it now has over 1 million followers, as well as numerous others in YouTube and elsewhere who were outright censored on social media platforms, including,
I don't think I've ever seen anybody say that it's racist to speculate that it was a lab leak. And I don't think, okay, I might be wrong on this. YouTube TOS for COVID disinfo did not include the lab leak stuff, did it? It was only about like COVID denialism or about the vaccine. I don't remember people getting like banned for suggesting it was a lab leak. I could be totally wrong, but I don't remember people getting banned for saying it was a lab leak. I remember that always having been a discussed thing. It wasn't like a, it wasn't like a totally nixed thing. People usually got banned for other stuff.
This is just speculation, but we covered quite a bit of lab leak over the last 2 years, and we saw, significant ticks down sometimes in the weeks after, especially after, I think we were one of the first people to interview Brett Weinstein after Joe Rogan about the entire thing. I remember that would have caused a hell of a lot of consternation, you know, with YouTube and our previous employer. So you can just go into thinking about what the pressures were on at the time not to cover the story.
I mean, I think there's the reason this is still important, just to, you know, back up for a second, is obviously because we don't want to have another pandemic. And it is a live question right now. Actually, the government is weighing whether or not they're going to sort of rein in this gain of function research, and if they're going to institute new safety protocols going forward. There were recommendations to do exactly that, but that is still a very live issue. It's still a live issue because freaking EcoHealth Alliance is still getting grants and funding to do similar research, so it's a live issue because of that. But it also was
because gain of function research is all over the place. Again, I don't, it's all so like vague and abstract. I don't actually know what's being said. I don't understand what's actually being talked about here. So say that it happened, and say the reason why the leaked strain was so powerful was because of gain of function research. Okay, so if our response to that is that we then want to ban all gain of function research, that would come across to me as profoundly stupid. It seems to me the most likely prescriptions that you could make would be to say that China probably has more lax safety standards when it comes to their labs, which I would fully believe because it's China. So like, so is that the case? Because I'm fine with that.
Really important because it shows what happens when you have this combination of weird, toxic partisanship, right? There was, you know, Trump out there calling it Kung Flu and whatever, and there was all this concern about anti-Asian American hate. And so when Fauci and other leading scientists basically came down in lockstep and said, no, this is conspiracy, the lab leak is conspiracy, all signs point to a natural origin, well, their media lackeys just jumped right in line and followed suit, as did, you know, the censors at various social media platforms. I think it's really important to remember at the very beginning how the—
no. Even if you end up being wrong in the long term, it is most responsible to— so like the initial claim that it was a Chinese lab leak was fully unsubstantiated outside of conservatives gesturing at the Wuhan lab and going, huh? See? Right there, right? Huh? It'd be like, right there, huh? Huh? Like, even if those ended up being correct, and again, this is how things settle, like, the fact that the media would not immediately jump on that claim is just reasonable journalism from the media. There's no like, why would they just randomly, based off of speculation, jump on that?
This cover-up started. There was a conference call with Fauci and a whole bunch of others where they were kind of going back and forth. All right, how do we think this started? And there was one scientist in particular who said, look, guys, the sequence here is almost identical. Like, you can see how they just inserted this furin cleavage site, and it looks just like previous research that's been done here. So from the beginning, on this call with Fauci, there was an understanding that, yeah, it's pretty likely that this was lab leak. Now, not that they were saying it was 100%, but it was like maybe 70-30, maybe 60-40. And that's the conversation that happens privately. Days after is when Peter Daszak, covering his ass, shepherds all of these other scientists into putting out this letter saying, no, it is a natural origin. That's what it is pointing to. And then after that, Fauci's able to go out in public and point to that letter and say, this is what scientists are saying. They're saying it's natural origin. It's basically conspiracy to suggest that it's lab leak and you're racist, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is what made—
Please say something. I'm begging.
He was suggesting it was lab leak, the fact that Republicans were suggesting it was lab leak, and then you had the scientific establishment, in order to protect their grant money, their funding, and cover up any potential involvement that they had in this type of research, they come down on the other side, and that's how you end up with us years later finally getting any glimpse of the reality of the facts and the evidence around what actually happened.
If anyone wants to track what we're saying, we've been covering now for literally, I think, 3 years now at this point. And what have we learned? Well,
on YouTube without getting banned? How? I thought, okay.
Okay, well, we talk about the initial cover-up that you just did with the scientific community. Then we talk about Dr. Fauci using this—
There was no cover-up. A cover-up did not take place. The idea that, like, the scientific community, like, went down to Wuhan, that's absolutely not a cover-up. It's just not accepting insubstantial evidence.
Up of the scientific community. Something that we alleged for a long time is that Dr. Fauci illegally circumvented U.S. government regulations to fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. This was considered a conspiracy up until a year ago. And then, lo and behold, just a few months ago, put it up there on the screen, January of 2023, the NIH itself, a new report finds, did not follow its own safety protocols in properly tracking the EcoHealth Alliance while it was studying bat coronavirus research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. The new findings vindicate exactly what we talked about, which is that—
Okay, so what is the claim here? The NIH did not properly track EcoHealth Alliance, which had been awarded grants that Dr. Fauci was associated with to circumvent U.S. law on grants given to fund gain-of-function research. Oh, God, I feel like it's been a while since I've had to dig through this. Okay, so what are the guidelines for grants? Here we go. Gain-of-function deliberate process. NSABB recommends the evaluation oversight. Is there there's a ban? Look up specific grant. Is there or is there not a ban? Here, funding pause on certain types of gain-of-function research from 2014. Undertake a deliberative process to assess the risks and benefits of certain gain-of-function research with influenza, SARS, and MERS viruses in order to get a new federal policy funding this research. Is this even relevant? Then they lifted it in 2017? Lifting a funding pause from 2014. So they lifted it. So what law was broken? I don't even know what the claim is. Corrupt doctors or something? Okay, hold on. Daily Wire, what did Fauci do wrong? I don't know. Okay, the NIH was funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan, but the NIH pretended it didn't meet their gain-of-function definition to avoid their own oversight mechanism. Okay, on what? Man, I hate the conspiracy rabbit hole, dude. I'll later send a letter to Merrick Garland alleging Fauci had potentially violated 18 U.S. Code 1001, which states, whoever makes maliciously false. Okay, what false claim? The NIAID funds many scientific projects both in the U.S. and elsewhere. In response to questioning by me, Dr. Fauci testified that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. In May 2016, the National Science Advisory Board for Biosecurity released a report entitled Recommendations for Evaluation and Oversight of Proposed Gain-of-Function Research, which stated, the term gain-of-function is generally used to refer to changes resulting in the acquisition of new or an enhancement of existing biological phenotypes. In a paper entitled Discovery of a Rich Gene Pool of Bat SARS-Related Coronaviruses Provides New Insights in the Origin of SARS coronavirus, Dr. Zhengli Shi describes research conducted at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and funded under NIAID Award R01AI110964, in which the spike genes from 2 uncharacterized bat SARS-related coronavirus strains were combined with the... Okay, so was this done with their funding? Because the accusation here is that this was being done with NIAID funding. So was it? This is from 2017. Discovery of a rich gene pool of bat SARS-related coronavirus. Okay, is this gain-of-function research? It doesn't use the term gain-of-function research. Why are we calling it gain-of-function research? Combined with the genomic backbone of another SARS-related coronavirus, create novel chimeric SARS-related viruses that showed cytopathic effects in primate epithelial cells and replication in human epithelial cells. These experiments combine genetic information from different SARS-related coronavirus, then combine them to create novel artificial viruses capable of infecting human cells. This research conducted at the Wuhan Institute and funded under NIAID Award R01 blah blah fits the definition of gain-of-function research. Okay, so let's take a look at this grant then. Award information. Your connection might not be private. This is a government website from the Washington Examiner. Secret docs reveal FBI investigated decision to give cash to Wuhan lab linked to COVID-19. Inquiry. These are the thingies. How to infectious diseases. Understanding bat coronavirus emergence. Okay. Grant questions. Award to EcoHealth Alliance. Titled Understanding Bat Coronavirus Emergence. Oh, for sure, Demon Mama. So I just want to know what the claim is. Understanding Bat Coronavirus Emergence. Was that, here's the original Chinese language source? I can't make anything of that. So this is the research that is being alleged from the Wuhan lab to contain gain-of-function research. Discovery of a rich gene pool of bat SARS-related coronaviruses provides new insights into the origin of SARS coronavirus. Okay, we have to read the abstract. Hold on. So we're looking to see if they did gain-of-function research here. Sequence differences, report the finding of for the first discovery, strains, discovery. Where's the combining? After sequential recombination events between the precursors here, cell entry studies demonstrate that 3 newly identified different S protein sequences are all able to use human ACE2 as the receptor. Okay, so does this count as gain-of-function research? It seems like it would, because they are engaging in recombination events to enhance virality to human beings as a form of study. Would that meet the technical definition of gain-of-function research? Recombination analysis. The full-length genome sequences of all 15 SARS-CoV whatevers from the survey cave were screened for evidence of potential recombination events. Both similarly, plot and boot scan analysis revealed that frequent recombination events among these. It was suggested that WIV16, closest progenitor of human SARS-CoV known to date, was likely to be a recombinant strain from... Wait a second. Did they not actually do the recombinations themselves? They just identified recombinations in existing genome strains from this collection of bats? They were looking for natural recombinations, not constructing them themselves? If that's the case, then this ends it right here. If it's literally just them examining existing recombination and not them doing it themselves, then that's literally not gain-of-function research. We wouldn't even have to investigate the grant. Breakpoints for identified genome sequences. Nothing here mentions deliberate recombination. Detection of potential recombination events. Okay, there's more to read. Hold on. This is the most esoteric. Vaush, I think you're too papega to understand biotechnology. What? Then what am I wrong on, Hidden Marty? Answer or ban? What am I wrong on? So far, everything that we've read suggests that they're identifying recombinant strains in the existing group of bats, not that they're deliberately manufacturing them. What have I been wrong on? Hold on. Wait, this might point to construction. In the current study, we successfully cultured an additional novel SARS-CoV RS4874 from a single fecal sample, using an optimized protocol and Vero E6 cells. Its S protein shared 99.9% AA sequence identity with those of previously isolated WIV16 and was identical to WIV16. Using reverse genetics techniques we previously developed for WIV1, we constructed a group of We constructed a group of infectious bacterial artificial chromosome, or BAC clones. Only the infectious clones for RS431 and RS7327 lead to cytopathic events and transfection. The other 6 strains with deletions in the RBD region, RF4075 and RS481, failed to rescue cytopathic performance. The contrast, respectively infected with the 2 isolated Americans. The isolated effect has 3 novel SARS-CoV can be used. Human ACE2 cellular entry receptor. We conducted viral infectivity studies using HeLa cells with or without the expression of human ACE2. All viruses replicated efficiently in the human ACE2 expressing cells. The results were... Okay, wait, hold on. This might get complicated. Viral infectivity of these strains were determined in HeLa cells with without the expression of human ACE2. ACE2 expression was detected in the goat anti-human ACE2 antibody for the isothiocyanate, conjugated donkey anti-goat IgG. Wow, biotechnicians sure are doing stuff. Virus replication was followed by rabbit antibody. Bruh, even the coronavirus has a richer culture than America. True. Nice meme. Vaush, I feel like you're a little out of your depth here. No, my brain is melting. No, you just have to know what to focus on that's important. I think I have it. I think I have my theory. Hold on, we're almost done. We need to finish the conclusion. Then we can decide whether or not this was gain-of-function research. Okay, never mind, I'm bored now. Okay, this is what I think happened, if I'm correct, okay? I think in order to determine the characteristics associated with the expression of the SARS-CoV virus in this group of bats in this cave, what they did was they tested a bunch of the strains of the virus, and then they identified that some of the strains of the virus were recombinant, meaning that they were not the original iteration of that virus. They had been combined. The genetic similarities between different strains of these viruses allowed them to mutate and adapt and develop new characteristics. And what they did in this study, which lasted over 5 years of comprehensive genetic analysis of this expression of SARS-CoV, was they did some recombinant action themselves to determine what kind of directions this could go in, including whether or not this would be infectious to human beings, because some of the SARS-CoV strains already were. So what they were essentially doing was determining whether or not the recombinant strains had the potential to pose a threat to humans. That is, they weren't attempting to make a more dangerous virus. They were attempting to ascertain the genetic capabilities and mutation capabilities of the existing strains of SARS-CoV. They weren't trying to make a worse COVID. They were trying to understand what these strains of COVID were already capable of, which involved them examining the potential of recombinant effects, including the ones that had already changed themselves just through natural processes. I don't think you could call that gain-of-function research, because they're not really examining gain-of-function. What they're trying to examine is the existing characteristics of the SARS-CoV strains. it's directed evolution. No. They're not directing the evolution. The point here wasn't to try to move the SARS-CoV in a new direction. The point was, oh, wow, this group of SARS-CoV gene expressions is mutating and changing. What are these mutations capable of? And to that extent, they were trying to see what existing and non-existing recombinant behaviors could lead to. That's a fancy way of saying gain-of-function research. Is it? If that's the case, then that definition of gain-of-function research would involve any kind of genetic modification of any... If that's the case, then everything is gain-of-function research, because almost all research, like, if you're researching a virus, would that not always include, like, tests being done on the virus? If that's the case, any test would lead to outcomes that would necessarily... You're not gaining a function. They're they're trying to determine a capacity for pre-existing functions to manifest. It is technically, but there are different types. Well, technically, the ban on gain-of-function research was specific types of gain-of-function research. Like, even the Wikipedia article was kind of gain-of-function research background and alternatives. Widely relies on studies that involve gain or loss of function. But if the function is already present... Yeah, if gain of function means every time you edit genes, I feel like that's like so broad that it would be everything. What is gain of function research as defined by the NIH? Because wouldn't that be the most relevant? Like, wouldn't that would be the definition we're looking for, right? They were replicating a process already observed in the wild to gain more information. That's not gain of function. That's what I feel like. Does it count? Yeah, gain-of-function research from the NIH. In January 2017, the U.S. government released policy guidance for the review and oversight of research anticipated to create, transfer, or use enhanced PPPs. Okay, so what guidelines were those? Also, wait, hold on a second. The paper that we were just looking at, the paper of the Chinese scientists, that paper came out in 2017, right? But it said in the paper that this was after the results of a 5-year-long study. Wouldn't that mean the grant to fund their research would have had to have come from at least 2012? I think normally you apply for grants before you start the study. Wouldn't that imply that this... I guess it depends. We need more information on the specific grant. The specific grant that we were looking at. NI8 Award R01 blah 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 blah. When was this awarded? How much? Here's a paper on it. This is from 2020, so this would have been after the fact. What even is this segment? Don't worry about it. Okay, which supports the project understanding the risk of bat coronavirus emergence. Okay, so this from, okay, the NIH. Okay, so this acknowledges that in the grant money did indeed support that project. Okay? Has withdrawn its termination of this grant. So the grant has been reinstated. And subject to biosafety requirements set forth in the NIH grants policy statement. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. Research funded under this grant must adhere to the CDC/NIH biosafety and microbiological and biomedical... Okay, hold on. Grant recipients are expected to provide safe working conditions. Okay. Please, just tell me what the guidelines are. We hope you find the 6th edition of Biosafety in Microbiological and Biomedical Laboratories complete, timely, and most of all, easy to use. I don't know, will I? Yep. How many pages? 604. Okay. Right. Gain of function? Is the term not used? Malfunction, can function, malfunction. What about gain of function? Do they not mention gain of function in this? If it doesn't mention gain of function, then of what relevance is this to... Then what is the accusation they haven't followed? Research funded under this grant must adhere to the NDC, NIH, biosafety, microbiology. So, this is a government doc on the subject. Look at page 4, summary. The The NIH has denied in its funding GeoF research coronavirus more dangerous, such as improving transmissibility. In 2014, it said it paused funding for GeoF research that was reasonably anticipated to confer attributes to influenza, Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS, or SARS viruses. This appeared to be false by its interpretation of the documents released by The Intercept. Multiple sections of this grant proposals and grant progress reports make it clear that the grants funded gain-of-function research of concern in Wuhan. Ebright said these sections of the document showed NIH grants supported the construction of mutant SARS-related coronaviruses that involved blending different types together. We saw this. The result was a lab-generated virus that can affect human cells, he said, adding that at least 3 of the lab-generated viruses exhibited 10 times to 100 times higher viral loads in humanized mice. Humanized mouse have been bioengineered to mimic certain biological characteristics similar to humans. That's freaky. Commonly used in research, okay. The question is whether this work on humanized mice constitutes GFS research. Ebright says it does. Newsweek contacted the NIH for comment from Fauci and received this statement. The NIH has never approved any research that would make a coronavirus more dangerous to humans. The research we supported in China, where coronaviruses are prevalent, sought to understand the behavior of coronaviruses circulating in bats that have the potential to cause widespread disease. The body of science produced by this research demonstrates that the bat coronavirus sequence published from that work were not SARS-CoV-2. So does really all of this, literally all of this, come down to whether or not observing recombinant function in different strains of SARS-CoV counts as gain-of-function research? That's so niche. Understanding risk of zoonotic virus emergence in IED hotspots of Southeast Asia. Let's just finish the video. I'm so sorry I did the thing again.
About, which is that gain-of-function research under the Obama administration was considered so dangerous and risky for the potential of a lab leak or some sort of other similar type event that the U.S. government was going to stop funding it. Then Dr. Fauci reverses these guidelines in 2017, greenlights $8 million in grants to the EcoHealth Alliance, which continues this virus study at the Wuhan Institute of Virology up until September.
Wait. The grant was approved in 2017, which was the same year the article was released? Wait, what? Wait. The grant they're saying ties Dr. Fauci to this research was issued in the same year that the paper was published, even though research had begun 5 years beforehand? How is that even possible? Can't we find the date it was issued? Can somebody confirm the date the grant was issued, please? The ban was removed in 2017 as well. If the ban was removed in 2017 and they're alleging that the grant was made after the ban happened, then where's the crime? Findings of our 5-year surveillance. And this was published at the end of 2017, so they just skipped in right at the end to fund it? Okay.
Of 2019, when all these things go black. And why does it matter as for right now? Put this up there. October of 2020.
Here, shouldn't this paper say when the grant was issued? Grant number R1R01AI11096401. And that is, which, here, 06. I thought it was an $8 million grant. Is this a sub-grant of the grant? So this was issued in 2014, before or after? Why are they saying 2017? They got more grants after 2014? This is so annoying. I'm just, no. No, I'm done. I'm done. I hate this shit.
22. You can see. Actually, that's
see, 600K grant listed right here. Then why do people keep mentioning a $8 million grant? So that would have been from 2014, which would have been when the research was being conducted. But was this before or after the ban that was posted? If so, why did Sagar just mention the 2017 revocation of the Obama-era ban when this was the Obama... What? So where's the... When was the pause? When was the pause? October 16th, 2014. So the grant was issued before the pause even happened? If the pause was after the grant, then why mention Dr. Fauci revoking the... Oh my God.
my screenshot of the exact abstract, which is we are providing Fauci on his way out of the National Institute of Health, greenlit an additional grant to the EcoHealth Alliance, continuing to study bat viruses. I'm not exactly sure why. More bat coronavirus research, a 600,000.
What the do you mean? I'm not exactly sure why. What do you think virologists do? It's an entire field of medicine. What do you think they do? What do you mean why?
Grant to EcoHealth Alliance, the same organization that funded the Wuhan lab. Now, also with Dr. Peter Daszak, why it matters, and I know much of this can sound as complicated as Watergate or Iraq WMD, but they are important because Peter Daszak was also a part of the initial investigatory group from the World Health Organization that initially determined that there was no lab leak and said it was natural origin, and has the famous interview on 60 Minutes where they said, well, are you just taking the Chinese word for it? And he said, well, what else can we do? I'm like, I don't know, maybe look at your own records. He has a vested monetary.
How would looking at your own records tell you whether or not there was a lab leak at a Chinese-controlled research lab? What would American medical records tell us about the practices and potential medical mishaps at a Chinese-controlled lab?
Interest. And then, even bigger step. Let's make sure that this never happens again. Well, what are we doing? Something Josh Rogan has pointed to is that the response from the scientific community, specifically headed by Fauci and the U.S. government, has the global...
We don't even know what evidence led the Department of Energy to claim they think it might have been a lab leak because it's a classified document. All we know is that they said with a low rate of confidence that they think it is.
Virome project to actually increase billions of dollars in gain-of-function research under the guise of let's never let that next pandemic happen again. Let's try and bioengineer these viruses so that we can create antidotes, cures, vaccines, or whatever in the future. When it seems now at this point, I mean, look, if you are still pumping the natural origin theory, there is almost no evidence to support that. Like, you have been unable to find how some bat miraculously flew 1,000 miles and ended up in the Wuhan lab. Even the Chinese don't even really stick.
What? First of all, bats can fly 1,000 miles. They do that sometimes. Secondly, what? Third of all, they had already done research on the SARS-CoV virus strain infected bats and found that recombinant mutations within their own population, which had already been taking place, had the potential to lead to extreme human virality. The research found that there absolutely was a brewing cauldron of viral potential, of danger. What?
By the they don't stick by the wet market theory. They're like, oh well, something was contaminated along the way, and just stop asking questions about this. All of these intel.
How do we think viruses work? This is all so stupid. This is so dumb. Oh my god. It's not even like I don't think it could have been a lab leak. It's like, why are we all being so dumb? Why is this so dumb? Oh my god. Jesus.
Communities that still assess all of this are based on older intel. You have also the former CDC director under Donald Trump. Remember, he came out and said, I think it came from the Wuhan lab. He was also dismissed then at the point.
And he was shut out of those original meetings when there was open conversation about how this
What do we want to do with it? What are we okay, say it was. What do we do with that?
was likely a lab leak, and the efforts to make sure that they shepherded everybody out of
I was thinking that too, Vermin.
that direction and towards the natural origin direction. I mean, it really is quite remarkable. And listen, even if you're still like, I don't know, it could be either one. Okay, fair enough. Is it plausible that this escaped from a lab? That's really all you need to know that this research is extremely dangerous.
No, you anti-science. We already knew that there was the genetic potential for a human pandemic from the bat population. That was the point of the recombinant analysis of their existing genetic strains. It was already there. The whole point of this is to research so we can know. Luddites were based. Luddites just weren't getting paid enough. This is just like caveman shit, man. Oh my god. Yeah, this is literally the same attitude that hippies had after 3 Mile Island, where they were like, wow, nuclear research can be dangerous. We need to stop this now. Like, this is the same shit that led to Germany dismantling all of its nuclear reactors because they're cucks, because people get a little bit scared. Like, it's not... The difference is, the critical difference here is that nuclear accidents don't happen in nature. They can only be human constructed, except for the sun, whatever. Whereas the SARS-CoV shit existed in nature. It was in nature. That was the whole point of the research.
And we need to be asking really hard questions about whether this should continue, what sort of safety procedures should be in place. And by the way, like, we know what the risk was. What have we gotten out of it? I was listening to an old episode.
Oh my God. Do we really want to examine the entire contribution of gain-of-function research? Like, what have we gotten out of this? People said the same stuff about nuclear research. Like, all this is brought as destruction. Okay, yeah, like, it's done a lot of bad. It's also, like, the most potent energy source, like, capable, like, possible, like physically possible. You know, but whatever. Wikipedia has a section on this. Experiments that have been referred to as gain-of-function. Investigating how bird flu viruses to birds could cross over and create pandemic in humans. A small change in the genetic makeup of the disease allowed the virus to transmit via droplets in the air made when the ferrets coughed or sneezed. Proponents of these experiments cited several benefits. They answered the question of how a virus like H5N1 could become airborne in humans and allowed researchers to develop vaccines and therapeutics which could target it. You know, the human health surveillance. See also CRISPR. Now that's different, but you know, a nuclear reactor isn't even exclusively man-made, it's occurable in nature. Well, that's terrifying. A natural nuclear fission reactor is a uranium deposit where self-sustaining nuclear chain reactions occur. Wow, cool. Love that. Love mining for diamonds deep underground and knocking open a cave wall and being instantly subjected to enough radiation to dissolve my bones. Neat. Okay.
Of Ryan's podcast, Intercepted. And they were talking, is that what it's called? Intercepted? Deconstructed, there you go. And they were talking about, like, okay, let's say it was the wet market. You have this Institute of Virology right there across the street. If it came from the wet market, you weren't able to stop that? Like, this is supposed to be your whole thing.
What? Crystal! Are you kidding me? A pandemic origin point right across the street? You're a virologist. Why didn't you stop it? What? With what? How, what? It's insane. She said that. That was insane that she said that. That was insane. That was actually insane. That is insanely stupid. Holy shit. Yeah, like they're gonna deploy a virus SWAT team, like the virus Ghostbusters with their proton backpacks gonna run out there. What the what do they think that was? Like a tyrannid infestation where like there was just a gene stealer running around and they were like, well, dude, you were right there. Why didn't you stop it? It's invisible. What do you mean? Okay.
Right? So even if you're buying the natural origin thing, like, what are we getting for this research? It's supposed to be preventing pandemics. Well, it failed.
No! The fact that a pandemic happened near a lab doesn't mean labs can't help prevent pandemic. That's not how that works. This is so stupid. This is like saying, dude, how the OSHA office is right here. How did you let somebody fall off a ladder like a block away or a mile away? No, it's even stupider than that. Because you can conceivably prevent a ladder from falling. You can't stop a virus from transmitting interpersonally out of nowhere from patient zero. What does that even mean? What were they supposed to do? Identify like the infected atom? Oh my God. Oh no, this would be like somebody developing a cancer cell and you're like, bro, there's a institute of cancer research just like on the other side of the city. Why didn't they stop it? That's actually what it's like. That's an actual analogous comparison. Bro, I thought all this cancer research was supposed to help, yet somebody developed a cancer cell on their lung on the other side of town. Dude, you were right there. What the f were they supposed to do? What does this mean? What does it mean? Oh my God. Show me Sagar's face. Is he gonna go along with this?
It failed. At the best you can say is it failed. And most likely it actually started the pandemic. So that seems to me pretty strong evidence that we need to dramatically change what we are doing in terms of gain of function research.
Yeah, you would think. And
yeah, he's gonna get, yep, of course. Obviously, because you can just say anything, dog. You could just, man, you can say literally anything. But yeah, we need to defund all medical care because somewhere near a hospital, somebody stubbed their toe or something. I don't know.
And let's just not forget, Fauci is probably the #1 person implicated in all of this. He's going out as a hero, but maybe history won't be nearly as kind. Let's just not forget how he tried to play this down at the time. Let's take a listen.
Everything about the stepwise evolution over time strongly indicates that this virus evolved in nature and then jumped species.
Well, considering the fact that the lab paper we looked at was a study on the recombinant effects of the virus strains in the bats there, and it found, wow, these SARS strains are mutating, combining, and their combinations are capable of infecting humans. It feels like the literal point of that research was to arrive at this conclusion. Like, yeah, this absolutely can threaten humans, Why do they think lab leak means man-made? Because they're stupid. Yeah, good point, Angel Thorns. I hadn't even brought up that distinction. At a lab, you have samples of viruses, even if the viruses are natural. A lab leak could just be a leak of an existing viral sample, not necessarily one that was constructed or made through gain-of-function research. It could just be a sample you have on hand. Nah, that is dumb. No, it's not. The 5-year study of the SARS-CoV strains in the bats was them having existing strains of COVID. A leak of those, which recombinant effects suggested they could infect humans, would indicate that yeah, they had the poop. They had the poop. They had the poop.
Fauci added he does not believe another theory that the virus occurred naturally but was accidentally released into the public from a lab in China, telling Nat Geo that means it was in the wild to begin with. That's why I don't get what they're talking about.
Okay, see, he's saying that even if it had leaked from the lab, the viruses the lab had were the ones they had gotten from the poop. So they just would have had the poop.
Don't get what they're talking about. He had all the information he knew. Let's remember, January of 2020, he received an email saying that the virus is, quote, not consistent with evolutionary theory. That's what's come out of the Fauci files ever.
What? Where is that from? Hold on. COVID Fauci not consistent with evolutionary theory? What the f does that mean? What does that mean? Some of these features potentially look engineered, Anderson wrote in an email to Dr. Anthony Fauci. All find the genome inconsistent with expectations from evolutionary theory? What does that mean? This sounds like bullshit. There are probably like an uncountable number of SARS-CoV strains in the wild. Many of the mutations are disadvantageous to the spread of the disease, so they don't go on and propagate themselves. But they can recombine, and the research found their recombination was infectious to humans, so... Like, even if we were making the argument that what they did in that study was gain-of-function research, all they were doing was replicating recombinant tendencies that occur in nature, which means that those changes would be fully consistent with evolutionary theory, whatever that means. Like, but the suggestion here seems to be that the virus was man-made to the extent that, like, it was beyond just basic recombination. Okay. In his email, Anderson called the ideas that the virus was engineered crackpot theories. Oh, so wait, Anderson said these look potentially engineered, but he also said the idea that it was engineered is a crackpot theory? What? The theory is that Fauci pushed him into falling in line about it? Okay. Okay, so the theory is that privately he thought it looked engineered, but publicly, when he gave feedback in advance of the National Academy's letter, he said, actually, no, there's no way it's engineered. Okay. Maybe he changed his mind in those 4 days? And this is claim of a cover-up, that there was an inconsistency between a privately expressed criticism and a publicly expressed one? What has he had to say on this since? Has he made any follow-up statements, like addressing this? In a 2022 paper, he concluded animals sold in a market in Wuhan, China, were the most likely to be the source of the virus. Okay, so read the rest of the article. My patience on this subject is already being tried massively here, okay? You all are lucky I haven't ended stream.
ever since then. And look, he remains complicit. He remains to say, like, look, it's possible. I never said that it couldn't have come from the lab. Yes, you did. We literally have the evidence right there. And look, you know, the Republicans say that they will investigate, you know, with the House committee. We'll see what they're even able to get their hands on. But at this point, even the coverage of this report, Crystal, it's silence, you know, from most of the mainstream media. It was covered, and I don't think it's a surprise, in the Wall Street Journal, the nominally conservative paper. You received a write-up in the New York Times where they went out of their way to say, well, many of the others still say it was natural origin, and this doesn't vindicate Trump's racist conspiracy theories. And as you said, look, we know clear as day, the Times, their former reporter, Donald McNeil, literally came out and said that while he was over there, he didn't cover the lab leak because he didn't consider it credible. And it was only months later when he realized he'd been lied to and manipulated by Dr. Fauci, the scientific community, and Peter Daszak. I mean, it goes so deep. It really is Iraq WMD level. And let's not forget.
Is it? A 15-year-long war prompted by deliberate dishonesty is comparable to the accusation that one guy said privately the virus might be engineered but publicly didn't, and we still have no evidence that it was. I want to talk to a conservative about this. Can I? I don't even want to debate them. I just want to, like, ask them a bunch of questions.
It's not just about what we do. This thing, you know, 1 million Americans died of COVID by some estimate. It cost trillions of dollars in economic.
Okay, so here's the thing. The tragedy of the Iraq War was a direct product of lying about the WMDs, in part. Is the suggestion here that if the media had said it was a lab leak, they would have gone back in time and prevented COVID from spreading around the world? What is like some kind of like chronological abnormality would have been addressed, and like the timelines would have restructured themselves, and we would have gone back and then it would have and then COVID wouldn't have happened? The bad parts of COVID happened the moment the virus happened. Whether or not it was a lab leak after the fact is maybe a secondary concern with regards to what protections need to be taken or who needs to be held accountable. It wouldn't have prevented the COVID deaths. Whereas the Iraq WMD things weren't like a post hoc thing. They were made as a justification to begin with.
Damage, like, you know, the Iraq War, there's a lot of recriminations as to what happened after the invasion, but, you know, what led up to the invasion was also very important. Yeah. Just like Vietnam.
Okay.
Just like the Spanish-American War, like, you have to go back and look at these initial conspiracies, cover-ups, and speculations and say, hey, how exactly did this shape what ended up coming, this catastrophe, so that we make sure that this doesn't happen again? I unfortunately do not think many people in the media will rescind that. All I have yet to see is all.
We got to fix the timeline, man. Do you think it's too late? Do you think if we say it was a lab leak now that, like, we can still fix the timelines? We can rewind? Artemis.
The initial pushback is, well, actually, it's the conspiracy theorist's fault for making it a conspiracy, so that we had to dismiss it then at the time because they were liars and not credible. Maybe you're
actually, yes, that is true. If you support a position with a bunch of uncredible evidence, yeah, you do kind of taint it. Yeah, even if you end up being correct, that is literally true. For sure.
You're the liar. Maybe you're the one who's not credible.
Yeah, I mean, listen, fair enough that Trump did himself no favors, but you're a journalist. You're not supposed to be playing favorites. You're not supposed to be like, well, I like this one and I don't like this one, so I'm going to go with the theory espoused by the person that I like. And that was exactly what was the reporter's name, Don McNeil, is that his name? McNeil. That was exactly what he said he fell victim to. It was basically like, you know, I had long relationships with these scientists and people like Fauci, and so when they were like, no, it's natural origin, he just bought it instead of
What evidence did Don McNeil provide to say that he had been lied to? McNeil resigned under pressure from the New York Times following reports that high school students on a trip to Peru organized by the Times accused McNeil of making racially offensive remarks. Okay. Where is him saying he was lied to? McNeil lied to Fauci? Where I don't even see like an article where he I don't even okay.
Actually doing the research that you were supposed to.
Guys, I'm really sorry. I'm tired. The conspiracy bullshit really frustrates me a lot. I find it a little bit more entertaining when I feel like I can arrive at a kind of like definitive stance or conclusion. But the problem is, like, the honest to God problem is, I don't care if it was a lab leak or not. I'm not out here to defend the Chinese government. The problem is all the people who are talking about the lab leak stuff or talking about a bunch of other stuff, right? Like it's about like persecuting Fauci, which I didn't find any evidence in all of this to indicate that he done anything wrong. I mean, I don't know. Cons are so inconsistent. And then like keep in mind, overwhelmingly, the people who were saying that it was a lab leak thing were also saying that it was some like new world order attempt to destroy society, or that it was like the lockdowns were part of the government plan to respond or whatever. The problem is there was all this adjacent craziness. I don't actually give a whether or not it was a lab leak. I don't actually care. I mean, I'm interested in like a procedural sense, like what can be changed to fix stuff in the future. And hey, maybe gain of function research should be like banned or broadly regulated. But if I'm going to get advice on regulating gain of function research, it's not going to be from a piece of shit who's like, how could a virus happen right outside the Wuhan lab? Isn't that your job? I'm not going to take advice on procedure regarding gain of function research and virology studies from somebody who's like, well, why didn't they go out there and punch the virus so it didn't happen, huh? That's not how it works. It's so stupid. Yeah, bring me Danil. Someone more. I think he's very cute, and he probably does pee sometimes. We have a box that he does that in.